Welcome into the Door Report. It is episode 200 of the Door Report presented by Alaco Fine Wood Floors. It is Thursday. That's not Thursday. It's Monday night. What am I doing? Thinking about the last episode, January 16th, 2023. As always, we're powered by the great folks at Alaco Fine Wood Floors, family owned and operated for more than 2 decades. Alaco Fine Wood Floors is Nashville and Middle Tennessee's choice for premium quality hardwood floors. Since 1995, Jimmy Alaco and his army of employees have embodied the approach of taking pride in one's craft and providing superior customer service, growing from a one-man shop to a team of 23 professionals who share the founder's passion for quality craftsmanship and customer satisfaction. If you're interested in contacting them, you can find their headquarters at 2505 Winford Avenue in Berry Hill, or give them a call at 615-356-0303, or log on to their website at lacofinewoodfloors.com. Gentlemen, how we doing? We got Trevor and Will back in the building, and it looks like Vandy men's basketball just might be on their way back to somewhat of relevancy after a big time win over the Arkansas Razorbacks. Guys, we got a lot to get into. It's always nice when there's some chippiness, there's some edginess early in SEC play. And, well, we haven't seen that. I mean, we haven't seen that kind of competitiveness and that fire and that, just not quitting. I mean, they fought for Coach Stackhouse, and it was nice to see. I'll come out and say it. We haven't seen that in a long time.
Yeah, we haven't seen the chippiness, the edge, the fire. A lot of that is because this team hasn't been good enough to have chippiness and edge and fire. A lot of that comes with being able to mount comebacks. A lot of this is, and this team put up 63 points in the second half against Arkansas. Let me repeat that, 63. That is crazy. This team was down 42-34 going into the half. And just a note about the schedule, I know we're going to get into this, Trevor and Billy, and about the future of this season, but the 4 of the first 5 SEC games, including this upcoming matchup against Alabama, were against top 20 opponents. Yep. There are only 3 top 20 opponents remaining on the schedule in the remaining 13 games after this Alabama matchup. So I know a lot can change between now and the end of the season and who's ranked and who's good, but this SEC schedule is front loaded, and picking up a win against a really good Arkansas team is a great step for Jerry Stackhouse and this team, and they desperately needed something to build momentum inside of Memorial Gym.
Trevor, Anthony Black had it coming.
I think just kind of going off what Will said, and I mean even you, Billy, the fire that this team got just from Stackhouse getting teed up, Ezra Mannion, as awful as it was. I mean, we've all seen numerous Doug Shaw officiated ball games, so I'm not really sure that we should be shocked, even though it doesn't take away from the fact that it still sucks. Like a baseball team, a manager knows when to go out and argue balls and strikes and get kicked out. As much as I hate Jerry Stackhouse, I think he even going back to his playing days, he's always had that action about him. And I think he knows when to get it turned up and when to get the guys going. I think you saw that Saturday, but also credit to Anthony Black for just being a moron and just Anthony, if you didn't do the whole crying thing and acting like you were Allen Iverson stepping over Q and B, then Vanderbilt would have gotten slaughtered. That's just the fact. I mean, so thank you, Anthony Black. You woke up a Vanderbilt basketball team.
That was the definition of poking the bear. Was the definition of what Anthony Black did. I've had a lot of issues with Jerry Stackhouse. Trevor, I'm glad you brought up the technical that he received. I've had a lot of issues with Jerry Stackhouse, and I still have a lot of issues with Jerry Stackhouse.
Yes.
One of those issues has never been his ability to argue with referees. I have never had an issue with him getting technicals. I don't think coaches often enough stick up for guys, and fans, I don't think, realize how much that means to players, that you have a coach that understands how fucking frustrating it is to be screwed by calls. And you don't get a fiery coach without the occasional technical after a bullshit call that is horrible. So that's where we are. I have a lot of issues with Stackhouse, but that technical was needed and is what kind of lit the fire, like you said, Trevor, underneath this team for the 63 points in the second half.
I think too, and I'm sure we'll get more into this, but one of the things that also, I mean, like you said, Vanderbilt had a second half surge against not just a top 15 team, an Arkansas defense that is really good. And Vanderbilt was scoring on
Athletic.
them with ease. I think one thing that you can kind of get a glimmer of hope from for this game is I think in this game you saw what this team could be or what this team can be whenever you have Liam and Jordan both doing their thing. Not just when, because we know that Liam can win you ball games whenever he's doing his thing. And Liam's having an off night. Jordan can win you ball games if he does get it going. But I think Saturday you saw whenever you have your two guys both at their best, what this team could be.
Yeah,
And I think
and
that was a really hopeful like
And
glimmer.
Tyrin Lawrence as well. You just
Ty had a
gotta,
great
he
game.
was
Yeah.
outstanding offensively.
yeah,
So
and I'll say this,
Yeah.
guys. I think Vandy fans should be happy that it was Quentin Malora-Brown about to get stepped on, as opposed to really anybody else. Because if that was Studi, that there might have been an all-out
A
brawl,
fight.
and you could have had even more ejections. So I'm kind of glad
Yeah.
it was Quentin Malora-Brown, the guy who was just, Quentin did nothing. He didn't even really react to.
Oh, and shout
almost
out
getting
to Miles
stepped over.
Studi. You said Miles Studi, but shout out to him on that one scuffle. He completely turned his
Yeah,
head and
he
walked
went
away.
right to the
And
bench.
they
Yeah.
were desperately looking to
You
give
can
him a
tell.
technical and eject him from
Yeah,
that game. And he wanted to, so every fiber of his
you could
being
see it. Yeah,
was tell
yeah.
him go get nose to nose with that guy. And he turned around and walked towards the bench because he knew the rereferees were going to be keeping an eye on him.
And I
And
think
Doug
this
Chow
team has.
said if we
I,
can't give Miles a technical right here, we're gonna give Jordan Wright one for some
yeah,
unbeknownst to reason. We're gonna give somebody, we're gonna tee up somebody here, guys.
yeah. We'll get into all that. Of course, we got Vandy beating Arkansas 97-84, a top 15 victory for Vandy. We'll preview Alabama, talk about the Tide rolling in, some kind of an awful story heading into Tuesday night with their player Darius Miles. I mean, obviously that's a deeper issue there with human life, but we got to wonder that could impact Alabama somehow Tuesday night. So we'll talk about all that though. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter at @door_report and Instagram door.report. Like us on Facebook. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Our podcast is available on Anchor, iTunes, Spotify, and Google Podcast. And while you're at it, give our podcast 5 stars and a review on iTunes. All right, let's recap the Arkansas victory. All right, guys. Vanderbilt defeats Arkansas, number 15th ranked Razorbacks, 97-84. Vandy improves to 9-8 overall, 2-2 in the conference. Razorbacks fall to 12-5 and 1-4 in the SEC. I was listening to Musselman's post-game press conference, and he said their last 3 losses have been by double digits. So Arkansas is not in a good spot right now, and it's kind of surprising. They've been at least the last couple of years at the top of the league and very competitive, and I think they're banged up. They've got a lot of talent. I'm sure they'll figure it out, but they have been struggling. Guys, 5 technical fouls were assessed in the first half of this game. 3 of them, of course, in that final minute. That sequence, of course, resulted in a whopping 7 free throws for Arkansas. 7 free throws. I heard the broadcasters talk about it. I was like, wait, what? 7 free throws? Are you kidding? The Razorbacks went to the locker room with an 8-point lead, but Vandy went to the locker room pissed off, guys. I mean, that you said it, Will, that won them the game, or it might have been Trevor, but we all know that sequence right there gave Vanderbilt all the motivation they needed to go out into that second half. And it was almost as if Liam Robbins said, I'm not letting this happen. I'm not letting this fly. He went out and just dominated the first half of that second half, the first 10 minutes or so. I mean, it was the Liam Robbins show. And then you had Jordan Wright get hot. But, guys, let's hop right into that scenario. I mean, that was I don't know if I've ever seen a situation like that in basketball, especially in a Vanderbilt game. I mean, you rarely see a scenario where a player attempts to step over and stare down the defender and not get called for anything. He didn't get a technical. He didn't get anything. Instead, he got an and one called. And Ezra Mannion, the guy that he didn't even, I mean, he flopped. Anthony Black flopped. It was a shove.
Yeah.
But Anthony Black, he could have stayed on the ground. I mean, so there's obviously a lot to get to in that situation, but he gets ejected from the game, Mannion, which is ridiculous. I mean, in no way, shape, or form should he have gotten tossed. Of course, that's what Stack was pissed about. And then you tack on the never-ending crybaby taunting from Anthony Black, and that was all. That was everything they needed, guys. I mean, if you're the bench, credit to the bench too. I was surprised nobody got up and tried to sock Anthony Black in the face while he was standing at the free throw line. So credit to the composure. I thought the coaching staff did a really good job just kind of settling everything down. And you could tell that they have taught that to their guys. They have, especially Studi, Will, you talked about it at the Open. Composure. That was one of the bigger things in a veteran team. I mean, that was a veteran win, guys. Arkansas is a young, immature squad. Vandy is a veteran team that has the pieces. We just hadn't seen them put it together really since this Arkansas game. I mean, that was the best game they've played, guys. They shot the lights out. We'll get into all those stats, but man, Will, I mean that sequence right there, I look at that and say that might be where Vandy won the game.
There's so many storylines to get into about this game and the subsequent reaction, but just getting to that, the meat of it immediately. That sequence and the entire way this game was refereed is everything that is wrong with officiating in college basketball specifically, but across basketball in general. All of those technicals, except for Jerry Stackhouse's, which was a reaction to the technicals and ejections. So I don't think that would have happened if there were no other technicals. None of these technicals or ejections should have happened. There was nothing that you would look at that happened on that court that any normal person would say, that's just unacceptable. That's not within a competitive game or a competitive scenario, which in my opinion is what warrants an ejection. Something that is outside the bounds of a normal competitive fiery act. What Mannion did was basically what Miles Studi did, shoving Anthony Black pretty much to start out that second half, that they went back and reviewed and said, nothing here. It's just Mannion's happened during a dead ball foul and was probably a little less forceful and intentional, honestly, than what Miles Studi did in game action. So this was an absolute ref show. Everything about this was small penis energy. Everything about this was, I have the power, and the only way that I'm going to show you that I have this power is to issue technical fouls out. And Arkansas in general just rubs me the wrong way. And people commented underneath a lot of my tweets and said, you know, if this was your guy doing this or your team doing this, you would love it. And to an extent, that's true. But the difference is that Arkansas, the moment any real physicality or any real confrontation happened between the players, just immediately backed off and just immediately went over and complained to the referees. And that Musselman, he's a bitch. I hate him. He's about 5'5". It's just everything from him walking up to Jerry Stackhouse with his hand over his mouth when he was talking to the referee before Stackhouse was issued that technical. I've found a new team to hate in the SEC. And that's the Arkansas Razorbacks. And Anthony Black is a bitch. And what really took, so I put like $25 on Vanderbilt money line the moment that Anthony Black taunted the Vanderbilt bench, because Vanderbilt is a bunch of grown men. It's a bunch of 22, 23-year-old guys, a lot of experience, that are going to take that personally when an 18-year-old kid taunts them in their home gym. And you saw a different level of focus from this team in the second half, a different level of take the ball to the basket, create the contact, be physical, rip down boards. And honestly, guys, a lot of this is just the shots were falling. Memorial Magic was back. I mean, you don't put up 63 points just because of execution. There's some magic in the air. There was something guiding the ball into the basket, and the universe knew that the Vanderbilt basketball program needed this victory. And Trevor, I'm sure you have a few other things to say about that fun little scrum that happened at the end of the first.
I mean, also too, how if you are going to call a game, which then again there were times. I think the frustrating thing was there were times that the crew let a lot of things go, and then they would call a lot of ticky tack stuff. Which, if you're going to call ticky tack, as much as I hate it, call it all game. If you're going to let them play, which I'm a little bit more of a fan of, let it go all the way. But the fact that Anthony Black, and it's not like he was over on the bench, The fact that he can stand at the free throw line and do the little crybaby thing,
How is
and
nothing called? I
how
mean, he was standing
how do
there.
you not see that? Like,
By the
He
way,
did.
I want to
that's
say in the middle of this,
crazy.
before we get too deep into going it, all this is in fun. And Anthony Black, like, I do kind of dislike you, but I kind of do like it. Like, being a little bit of a shithead, keep
Yeah,
it coming. Like,
I was
it
gonna,
creates
I was
intrigue,
gonna
it
say,
creates
Will,
that
this is
fire.
what you
Yeah, yeah.
like.
Thanks.
Yeah,
You woke us
like
up and helped us
I
get a
like
win.
it. I
Thank you.
like it, and all this is like understood that it makes the game a little more fun as well.
I will say though, I feel like there's a line like Vandy has like Studi's never been that bad. Like directly taunting a bench crying like that.
I have a
Yes.
video.
Like
I have a video of Studi leaning forward and going and flicking his tongue repeatedly at the opposing
that was
bench
at
like
I think
this.
that was at Arkansas actually. I think it
Yeah.
might have
So
been.
So
I mean,
good.
I'm just saying that my issue with it is more with how Arkansas acted after they talked all
Right,
the
yeah.
shit.
Yeah.
But also continue your rant, Trevor. I apologize. I just had to give the little
No.
caveat of we don't genuinely hate Anthony Black because he did a little crying
I
thing.
don't know. I might be
Maybe Trevor
there.
does.
I get it doesn't take a lot for me to turn on you. I can turn pretty quick. So Anthony Black he's up there on my hate list right now. But I mean, yeah, like you said, the officiating was awful. Um, but I think one thing about this ball game is it shows how, as if this wasn't obvious enough. I mean, everybody who watches Vanderbilt basketball or Vanderbilt athletics, I told you this in the first place, just how starved the fan base is for just a little bit of success. And to credit to you, Will, you talk about all the time. You're like, oh, what's it going to take to get fans at Memorial or at Vanderbilt State or at First Bank? Is it this? You just got to win, and you just got to make it consistent. And I think Saturday
That's the
showed
thing.
that whenever it doesn't take much for Vanderbilt fans to get a little belligerent, and you just need to win. And Saturday, when I was watching that game, and Vanderbilt kept just shot after shot after shot, and good defensive possession after possession after possession, how easy it was just for me to even like get back into a feverish, like foaming at the mouth, like Memorial Maniac type energy. It doesn't take much. And I
I went
think
from
that
not
if
even
you just
scheduling my day around the game, Trevor, to literally like I cannot wait until the
I
Alabama game tomorrow. It happens so quick.
exactly that and so like it's all you need. Guys, just string a couple wins together and watch it happen. Watch people get crazy again. And I mean, dear God, if this team, I would say even if they keep it competitive against Alabama
Yeah,
tomorrow night,
yeah. That's what I was gonna say. You know,
even if you just keep because
even
Alabama's
Alabama
they
just beat
might be the
LSU
best
by
team we
40.
play all year.
Yeah, no,
I think.
I agree. I mean, the way Alabama's playing right now, they could be the best team in the country. I mean, Brandon
Yeah,
Miller is arguably player of the year. I mean, not even
yeah,
freshman. Like he's unbelievable. So if Vanderbilt can give a classic Stackhouse battle, just fight, I think fans would be proud of that too. Just don't get blown
yeah,
out of the water. Now,
I
I
mean, you
think
look at
that
their
you're at
games,
the
Billy,
point.
against Tennessee and Missouri, both relatively. I know the Tennessee game wasn't exactly tight, but both those games were competitive. And then you come
yeah,
out and get a top 15 win. If you're competitive again, Vanderbilt fans are very reasonable people. I think
Yeah,
for the most part, just keep improving, keep being competitive. The opportunities for wins are here in the last 13 games of this season.
let me know if I'm off my rocker here, guys. Vandy has to go on a win streak of 5 or more this year to not only make the tournament, but to really have Memorial Gym back, like all the way back. Like they need to string. Yeah, you could have 3 in a row, and then at another point in the season, 3 in a row, and you're fighting for a tournament. But I think a 5 or 6 game win streak would just do wonders for this fan base because at that point you okay, this team can consistently win. That's just what they've. I think Stack has proved like the NIT. I think that was supposed to be a proven grounds of okay, they can consistently win. They can beat good teams in the postseason. But at this point in year 4, let's see it in the regular season and let's start to see some of that consistency because the SEC is there for the taking this year, guys. I mean, the SEC is it's a good conference still, but it's not as good as it was last year. It's
There's a lot
top
more
heavy.
parity this year.
Yeah, you saw South Carolina beat Kentucky, and then Kentucky turns around and beats Tennessee on the road. So anything can happen, guys. So let's get to some of these numbers, though. Tyrin Lawrence, I thought, well, you mentioned him at the top, was phenomenal. Kind of quiet, 22 points, honestly. He was slashing. He was driving. Arkansas could not stop him from getting to the rim. I don't know how many drives and left-hand finish Tyrin had in that game. Jordan Wright, 17 points in only 23 minutes, guys. I mean, 23 minutes. He 17 points. That's pretty notable. Miles
He was a
Stewart, 15.
menace at the bucket driving. He was, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, he turned it on. Like it
Yeah.
was it was fun to watch.
There was a period in that
I'm
second
muted,
half.
but Jordan Wright's still not fully healthy. Like I
Yeah.
don't know what it is, or he's like 90%. He's just a little bit afraid, or the staff is a little bit afraid to fully open it up
Yep.
and let him rip and play full minutes at 100%. There's just one notch turned down. And you saw for a stretch in that second half, Trevor, you just said it when he turned it on, where he flipped that switch and you kind of saw
You saw a
100%
glimpse.
Jordan
Yep.
Wright. It's just there's the risk when you see 100% Jordan Wright, he can re-injure his back. You never know when that's going to happen because he has whatever spasms are going on that are pretty
Mm-hmm.
much just forever. So Jordan Wright is a guy that if he can continue to get healthier, this team could just keep looking better and better.
Huge. And same thing can be said for Liam Robbins, guys. 14 points in only 19 minutes. The guy didn't play in the first half. He comes in the second half and just takes over. I mean, the first 10
Yeah.
minutes of that second half, guys, that was the Liam Robbins that we all know and love, and we've been wanting to see. And we've seen it a good bit this year, but that was almost like his peak. Like he is coming in, he's going to dominate. And he hit a three, I think, early in that second half. I mean, he hit a
Oh,
shot. He hit a shot
that
on
was
the
an electric shot.
he hit a shot on the block where he just kind of caught it, turned, spun, and then threw kind of a baby hook, and it went in. That was one of the early shots in the second half. So, and he was the dominant force that Vanderbilt needs in the paint. And Arkansas had some big guys. I mean, they had the average SEC 6'9", 6'10" athletic freak, but they were young, and Liam knew it, and he took advantage of it. And credit to him and the team. Trey Thomas also in double figures, 13 points, 3 threes. His threes were big. Trey Thomas, the love hate continues. My brother and I talk about it all the time. I mean, he's obviously not the best defender, but that dude hits big shots when you need it. I mean, one possession, he he kind of gets bullied in the paint, but then he goes down and drills a three in the corner. Like, we can't take him out. So that's kind of the love hate with Trey Thomas. But guys, I want to get to one more thing here, kind of a broader point. I know there's been a lot of complaints from fans about Robbins and Wright coming off the bench. And I think we all three of us were kind of wondering that same thing, especially after the Grambling loss and kind of the doomsday scenario early in the season. But being that efficient, Liam and Jordan in 19 and 23 minutes was incredible. I mean, 17 points in 23 minutes for Jordan, 14 points in 19 minutes for Liam. They're the two most important players on the team, and Stack knows that. He's preserving. Okay, for Jordan, I don't know about he's preserving his minutes because he's obviously still banged up, but it looks like they're almost preserving Liam somewhat for down the stretch of this season, saying, hey, we know we're going to have to pull off some upsets down the stretch of this season to have a chance of getting into the tournament because we blew our chances against Grambling State and that sort of thing. So I know I'm quite frankly, I'm still a little confused why Liam doesn't start. Obviously, it worked against Arkansas, whatever it was. He got in foul trouble, of course, right when he got inserted into the game. But not that these early conference games aren't important, because they are. But guys, they'll have to pull off a few upsets in SEC play to have a shot at the tournament. So I mean, maybe that's where Stack's going. I don't know why Liam and Jordan aren't starting against Arkansas. It didn't matter. I mean, it made Stack look like a genius. But Will, you said it a couple weeks ago, and Trevor, that could hurt them early in a game, especially an Alabama team that they get up 15-3, got to call a timeout, and then the game's almost lost. So I'm still not, I'm not convinced. Okay, this is what we need to do: bring Robbins and Wright off the bench, because it's one win. But I don't know, guys. Where are y'all on Robbins and Wright coming off the bench?
The bigger part for me, Trevor, go ahead and get this because I have another part that's kind of a tangent off of what Billy was saying. So, Trevor, go ahead and get your opinion out.
So I still really hate it. And maybe I'm an idiot. I don't think I'm that dumb. It still doesn't the Jordan I can understand. It still doesn't make sense like to me. I starting
It's
like we
hard
said
to
with
form
Trey
a
Thomas,
sentence talking about
love
this.
love hate, I get it. Trey Thomas should not be starting. It should not be in the starting five. He just should not. He's a defensive liability. He's bad on offense. He should be coming off the bench. Quentin Malora-Brown, I'm a little bit more forgiving. I'm going to be honest. I know he's young. I know he's raw. In this situation, if you're not going to start Liam, I'd rather see Lee Dort. Lee Dort, and the limited time he had on Saturday, was tied for the lead in rebounds and also had more points than Quentin Malora-Brown. Granted, he only had four, but he was 2 for 2 from the field, 4 points, tied for the lead with 7 rebounds. Quentin Malora-Brown, as much as I really want him to be good, has regressed back to the mean. His first year, awful. Last year, maybe the most improved player in the SEC. This year has regressed back to the mean. If you're not going to start, my big thing is there's no way in hell Trey Thomas should be starting over Ezra Manjon at the one. I mean, it's just like I'm coming around to sitting Liam and Jordan for the first 4 minutes. Okay, whatever. It would get to the 16-minute media timeout, whatever, bring him in 4 minutes, who cares? I cannot get behind Trey Thomas starting over Ezra Manjon.
I would love to be
Neither
a
one of them
fly
are
on the
great.
wall.
Neither one of them
They're
are
like,
great shooters, but Ezra Manjon is 10
Okay.
times the ball handler. I mean,
So,
Trey
Trevor, I'm
Thomas
very
is a little
glad
bit
you
of a
got
liability on every front.
I'm glad you got this take out because mine's going to be vastly different. So what has been my constant complaint, Billy and Trevor, about Vanderbilt basketball? Not
rotations.
enough shooters
Oh,
on the
shooters.
court. Shooters and backside rotation, but as far as personnel,
Well,
not enough shooters
rotations
on the
as in
court.
subs and, the way
Yeah,
we.
not but my main thing is not enough shooters on the court. It is good basketball teams. The point of basketball is to put the ball in the hole. Okay. This team put up 63 points against a pretty good defensive Arkansas team in the second half. Guess which player for the first time wasn't playing extended minutes in the second half in a significant game?
Ezra Manjon.
Guess what Ezra Manjon at the point guard position is completely incapable of doing?
Shooting.
Exactly. Ezra
Although the
Manjon,
mid
it's
range.
because, listen, timeout. This is unrelated to standing in the gym and sitting. It's like being a wide receiver and having stats. This is how the defense plays you. Why was Liam Robbins able to score? Why were driving lanes open for Tyrin Lawrence? Why did Miles Studi shoot 8 for 8 from the free throw line and only hit 1 3, but still put up 15 points? Because your one the entire second half was a shooter. So it extended out the guards who were unable to double on your shooters who were able to pump, drive, help over, either dish to a post or finish in the paint. That is 100,000%
Are you
driven by
saying
the
this
fact
team
that
is
your
better
point
without
guard.
Ezra?
I'm not saying they're better. I'm saying that you have to have a set number of guys that are threats from behind the 3-point line on the court
Right.
at all times to be a successful offensive team. With Ezra Manjon on the court, it limits you on who the other guys on the court can be. So when Ezra Manjon is out there, Tyrin Lawrence now doesn't have the same driving lane. So he's not near as effective and he's not able to pick his spots from three as well. When Trey Thomas is in the game, that pick and roll, you have to either switch or extremely hard hedge / double when Liam or QMB screen for Trey Thomas. Versus Ezra Manjon, teams are consistently fine with just going under the screen and soft hedging, get back to your original man that screened. So you can see it how Arkansas played defense. If any Vandy fans want to go back and watch the first half versus watching the second half, yes, Vanderbilt was just hitting some shots that they normally don't hit. Okay, that's one part of it. The other part is Arkansas had to adjust their defense because it was Trey Thomas and Noah Shelby running the point. And both those guys are fearless in taking threes. It is irrelevant if they hit them. The defense defends them like they are shooters, and they are hitting
I was
enough
going to
and
ask you
have
about
the
Shelby.
reputation. So I like Shelby. I love it.
I love Shelby.
I
He's
Would you
think
gotten a
not?
lot better.
that he
Would you not
definitely
just say let him play and just put him over Trey, and then
see.
let it be
I
Trey
I
and
think
Manion,
see. I think that Trey
or
Thomas is a
Shelby and
guy
Manion?
that plays too consistent of minutes. But Trey Thomas is a guy that can get absolutely hot and unstoppable. And you've
And
seen that even at
that is
his
the one
size.
drawback.
And so
Yeah.
I'm different in most in that I would trade a 10% better offensive player and would 100% put them on the court over a player that's a 10 times better defender. Like an improve defense is dime a dozen. If defense was the point of basketball, you'd have a bunch of fucking cornerbacks out there on the court. The point of basketball is to score. And this team in the second half had offensive lineups on the court. Arkansas put up points. They put up the same number of points they put up in the first half, but it didn't matter because Vanderbilt outscored them and were able to just play loose, run and gun. And once shots start falling, it's amazing how that momentum flows in basketball. And you brought up Noah Shelby. That's why I like Noah Shelby. Okay, he's young. He has some issues. He's too skinny to put on weight. He's a little bit slow-footed, but he is not afraid to put difficult shots up. And he has that type of jump shot that he can get it up in contested situations, kind of like Scottie Pippen Jr. And eventually those shots are going to get more consistent. He's not going to fall away on every single jumper that he shoots. That's why he's a little streaky and inconsistent. Same thing with Trey Thomas. He's not up and down when he shoots. But Noah Shelby, to me, is right now just a little bit less experienced, a little bit taller version of Trey Thomas. But eventually, I think Noah Shelby will be a lot better and has a lot higher ceiling than Trey Thomas. But right now, I think those two guys are relatively interchangeable. It's just I think Stack probably is taking Trey Thomas over Noah Shelby just because he gets them in the right sets and he's a little bit more consistent right now at shot selection. And, you know, it is Trey Thomas, but a little bit more consistent at knocking down those open shots.
Yeah, I want to go back to Ezra real quick. And, you know, I think I think we've all doubted him, you know, from the day he got here and kind of said, you know, he's a guy from UC Davis and, you know, we'll see what he does, but there's no way he can, you know, recreate what Scotty, you know, did last year. And no one, I mean, there was really nobody Stack could have found that could replicate Scotty. So that wasn't ever going to happen. But for Ezra, you know, the way he played at Tennessee kind of changed my mind a lot because the way he guarded Zakai Ziegler, I mean, he forced a few turnovers. He got into his grill and really was able to frustrate him. And I know Vandy didn't pull off that win, but I think Ezra's the kind of guy. And I like what you said, Will, about the shooters because at home, Trey Thomas is a guy that you're going to want out there. Just, you know, if he gets hot, he's comfortable shooting inside Memorial. On the road, I love a guy like Ezra being able to maybe frustrate the other team's point guard. But Ezra, he made a couple jump shots against Tennessee and then also against Arkansas where I was like, man, like just like a pull up, whether it was 10, 12 footer, where I like, I mean, that was something I wasn't even sure he could do. And he, you know, he would get in the lane. So he's not an offensive player by any means. But I do think he's veteran enough. He's a fifth-year guy. And I'm just saying my opinion has changed a lot on him from early in the season because we were down on him. I think once we've got SEC play, Ezra has changed my mind a little bit.
Well, this was not meant as like a shot completely at Ezra Mignon. It was more to just say, look at what happens when you have three shooters minimum on the court.
This is more of a compliment to Trey Thomas and guys like that.
Ezra Mignon against teams that pressure and against teams that are consistently trapping the point guard, he is very good and very quick at getting the ball up the court and avoiding those traps. It's just Stack has to realize that a point guard that is unable to shoot a three is kind of like a post that is strictly has a back to the basket game. That is old school, and it completely hamstrings your offense. So when Ezra and QMB are on the court, it can't be at the same time, number one. But
Yes.
number two, you have to understand that that is a giant X on your offensive game plan. So I don't care what you do in practice or what you draw up in practice. The opponent is going to basically be completely okay with heavy helping and just leaving that guy green. And if they hit an open shot, they hit an open shot. And that's the issue I have with what Stackhouse does. A lot of what it looks like he's drawing up is just guarding everybody like it's an NBA game. And just expecting the opponent to go in with the mindset of everyone on this court requires defense. And that's just not the case for Ezra Mignon. You don't have to guard him outside of 12 feet. And until he knocks down 3-point jump shots consistently, which he has not shown the capability of doing, teams are just going to keep sagging off further and further and further. So the 10 to 12-foot jump shot more than and he did knock it down consistently, and that's a good thing. He has to keep doing that,
right?
Or this offense is going to completely stagnate.
That's an X factor for this team. He doesn't have to hit the three if he's able to pull up, and they're at the free throw line guarding. I mean, they're not even stepping out. They're not even stepping out past the free throw line. A lot of guys. So if you're Ezra, if you're able to consistently hit that 10 to 12-foot mid-range jumper consistently, you make this team better. You know, we're not asking you to hit threes, but that's a great point because, you know, watching his highlights,
also,
you didn't see
how
a lot of that.
can you be incapable as a Division I guard of shooting and hitting at a 35% clip, literally wide open threes? Like that is unfathomable to me that he is unable to do that. Like that, I don't have the words for him being unable to shoot. They don't even guard him at the 3-point line. That is like my wet dream playing basketball. I promise if I was guarded like Ezra Mignon at the 3-point line, I'd be shooting 40% in the SEC. Yeah. So I disagree. I think he needs to shoot threes. And there's no way that he's that bad of a shooter. Maybe he is, but from his 10 to 12-foot jumper, it certainly doesn't seem that way. So Ezra, come on, man. You have to be able to shoot a fucking three. You're 24 years old. What have you been doing in the gym the last 5 years?
Well, I mean, what's his percentage from three? How many has he even shot?
That's a good question.
I mean, I don't. Ezra, we'll
8.3%.
How many has he attempted? Because if he hasn't attempted a lot, I think that's more of a thing.
One of 12.
Yeah, so he's attempted 12. I mean, Liam Robbins has probably attempted more. So, we'll see. Well, I mean, maybe Ezra hits another three this year, but I think for me, if he could get down, because I mean, I don't know that he's hammered down that 12-foot shot. I mean, he's starting to hit it a little bit more consistently. But that's a big key down the stretch. Guys, Vandy shot 69% in the second half, 52% for the whole game. You're going to win a lot of games doing that. 10 for 18 from three-point range, 56%. That's the best percentage in a game since 2020 against Auburn. Credit Justin Hershey on that stat. And, guys, they were 29 of 36 from the foul line. They made their free throws. So we talk about that every pod, Will. We did last year. And Trevor, we're introducing you to it. That's kind of the biggest stat that we report on after every game. 29 of 36 from the foul line.
If they'd had
amazing.
I mean, there were games earlier throughout the season to where we're like, if they shot just a hair better from the free throw line, they'd have a better record than they would right now. I mean, I think what was the Grambling State game? I mean, the Memphis game, if they made their free throws in the Memphis game, they would have won.
VCU.
And how much
our quote is always how many games you'd win if you just shot 80%. Just shoot 80% and you'll be amazed.
They were 81. Yep. 81 or 82.
And guess what Arkansas shot? 62.
That guys,
we would be a lot more happy with this team, and there would be a lot less gripes if they just made their free throws.
Yeah. Yeah. And guys, they took care of the ball too. Only 9 turnovers. They're now 7-2 when they turn it over less than 12 times. Credit Justin Hershey again. He's got all the big brain stats for Vandy on Twitter. But guys, they made their free throws and they took care of the ball. I mean, not ignore the 3-point percentage because, yes, it was great, but more times than not, if you make your free throws and you take care of the ball, you're going to win games, especially in the
It's winning
SEC where,
basketball.
I mean, that's the formula, especially for this team, guys. Yes, they have to shoot well. I don't know how many more times they're going to shoot 56% from three, um, because that's a pretty damn good percentage. I know they've done it a couple times this year, but if they can knock down their free throws and take care of the basketball guys, they're going to win. And I honestly think you can carry that over to a team like Alabama because I hate saying this, guys, and this will kind of segue us into this Bama preview. But with the situation going on right now, obviously we want to pray for the human that was involved and their family and their loved ones. But this situation, you got to believe that could impact this locker room and that team in some kind of way. I don't know how it does. And I'm not going to talk about this in a positive way because it's kind of sensitive. But at the same time, guys, this is in the middle of a season. I mean, and I know the guy, Darius Miles, he had gotten injured. He was out for the year. And, now this happens. But it's going to be interesting to see how this affects Alabama, their program. They're sort of they have an older group of guys, but they also have some young players, a guy like Brandon Miller, who's a stud. But I mean, we'll see, guys. We'll see how this impacts Alabama and kind of their psyche, especially coming into a kind of a rattlesnake's nest here in Memorial Gym, see how good the crowd is. But this is kind of a gut check scenario for them to see where their mind is at after that.
Are y'all kind of surprised that we're even playing this game right now?
I
Because
was
I think
thinking,
I am. I'm
I
kind of surprised it's not suspended
if he
or
was
postponed, I should say.
if he was and I don't, I'm just speculating
Mhm.
here. He was a guy that was already out for the year with
Yeah.
injury, and I don't think he had played a whole lot.
Only the
Uh,
day before. Only the day before.
yeah, so
He was
it's
only
just kind of
declared out for the season the day before it happened.
it's kind of it's just crazy. I mean, we haven't seen anything like a capital murder. I don't know ever in
Yeah.
college athletics. So, hate talking
Yeah.
about it, but if it's in the regular season. If this was off season, we wouldn't be talking a whole lot about it. But it's right before they play Vandy. Will
Yeah.
so, I don't know that
Happened a few
Memorial
days ago.
Gym.
Yeah.
I don't know that Memorial Gym is a place you want to kind of try to beat Vandy after something like that happens.
Yeah, I mean, this is obviously kind of one of those really touchy subjects when you're talking about it when it pertains to a basketball game, because obviously a basketball game pales in comparison to the loss of human life. But, this situation will impact what we're going to watch tomorrow night. There's absolutely no way within that locker room that this team is not distracted, and it can go either way. I think this team could come out with Alabama with a renewed energy and focus and, a togetherness and brotherhood of us against, all this controversy, or it can rattle a team. Really, like you said, there's no comparable scenario to compare it to. So that's kind of where I stand is it's going to have an impact on the game. What that impact is going to be, I don't know. But I do want to go back to and apologize to Ezra Mignon. He's in his 4th season. So he's not in his 5th year. So I did want
Is
to
he really?
correct myself on that. But looking at his bio and Ezra Mignon's, and then we'll get back to the Alabama preview. It's pretty interesting because he shot 40% or 38% from three his freshman year. And then he shot 22%, and then he shot 20%, and now he's shooting 8%. So I don't know if this is a case of the yips. I don't know what's going on. But he shot 38.6% from three his freshman season at UC Davis. That's not a fluke. He obviously had some sort of jump shot before. But moving into the Bama game, I want to see what we saw in the second half. I mean, my God, that was what we expected to see.
They're going to go undefeated if they play like that.
Yeah, that is what this team is capable of. Yeah, if they shoot like that, if they shoot 75% or whatever it was in the second half, they're going to literally go undefeated. But this team, they are capable of playing at that high of a level. Therefore, their mean and regression back to the mean should not be how they have been playing thus far in the year that got them to an 8-8 record prior to this win. So going into the Alabama game, keep the momentum going. And Billy, it's a quote from, I think, the football season, but the subtle disrespect of low expectations. Okay.
Yeah.
I think we have been very critical of Jerry Stackhouse and very critical of this team because we expected this team with the experience and with the talent to win basketball games and to look like a damn good basketball team and a renewed next chapter of Vanderbilt basketball. And they have not done that so far. So anyone that has been defending what they have been seeing on the court just had very low expectations going into this season. I don't think that the Vanderbilt basketball team within that locker room was pleased to be 8-8 going into this year. I think their expectations were certainly higher than sitting at 9-8 right now after that win against Arkansas. And moving forward, they have those high expectations and they have the talent to be an NCAA tournament team. And we never wavered on the expectations that we had for this team. We said that the expectations are to make the NCAA tournament. They started losing basketball games, and we evaluated this team saying, this team has the talent to make the NCAA tournament. Why are they playing like shit?
We kept
And it's
saying they have the
amazing.
pieces. Like,
It's amazing how often that can be seen as
Mhm.
hatred when you actually are just judging them accurately and not on a curved grade scale. So Jerry Stackhouse has to continue to improve. His offense is not up to snuff. There's too many long scoreless gaps and scoreless runs over his tenure, not just this season, that the players have cycled through. There's a new roster, there's a new rotation, and the same issues persist. That falls to the common denominator, the common factor in all four of Jerry Stackhouse's teams or Jerry Stackhouse. So in the second half, you saw a more free-flowing version of this offense. But how much of that was just hitting jump shots and how much of that was actual improvement? I think this Alabama game will be a good judge of that.
Yeah. I think too, I don't know if we're gonna do keys to the game, but I just have a feeling.
no, by the way,
Obviously,
we're not.
whenever you look at this game, okay, then I'll go ahead and throw this out there. Whenever you look at this game tomorrow, Brandon Miller is gonna get his. It is what it is. You can't stop him, you can just hope to contain him. If Liam Robbins can consistently, not just Liam, but if Liam, QMB, and whenever we see him lead Dort, can win in the post against Charles Bediako, I think Vanderbilt, I'm not going to say they win, but I think it's going to be like a 1 or 2 possession ball game. I think they can keep it really close if they can control the
Do
paint.
we know much
Um,
about Alabama's post presence? I know Bediako is there, but is he really the only force that we should be worried about? I know their guard play is unbelievable. But I mean,
their
when
guard
I
play is going to tear you up, but
yeah, like when I watch Alabama, I see threes, I see offensive rebounding, I see athletic freaks, but I don't know that I see a guy that can man on man defend a guy like Liam Robbins. I could be wrong, but and maybe they do it by committee. They
I
probably
feel
do.
like I've seen games to where Bediako can do that. I don't think
Okay.
we've seen the game to where he's taken over like Liam has with this last game. I think whenever Liam's locked in, I think he's unstoppable.
Yeah, he's that kind of
But we've
guy.
seen games to where like he's just not locked in. And as much as you hate to say it, like just as an athlete, you just have those games. I think if you see Arkansas Liam Robbins, I think it's going to be a dominant performance.
And he only played one
Now,
half.
if I think I'm going to be honest, I think Bediako is going to eat up QMB's lunch. I really do. I think it'll be kind of bad.
This is the
So
type of
I
game.
think, yeah. If
This is
Liam
the
can stay out of foul trouble, I feel good.
yeah. This is the type of game where QMB could potentially struggle just with all the athleticism around him, and that's most SEC games. I mean, let's face it, QMB has done his part, as well as he possibly and physically can. I mean, he's out there.
Yeah.
He's but I think the further we get into SEC play, guys, and hopefully the better Lee Dort gets, like you were talking about, Trevor. I think that could be the hope. Then again, Quentin Millora-Brown, you know, Will, you said it in our season preview. He is not a. I don't know that he would play, not even start, but I don't think he would play on any other SEC team. Um, I think there is a infatuation with him and the work he's put in, from a coach's perspective. I get that, but down the stretch of this season, if you can't see that Lee Dort, he has to get better. But I mean, the blocks we've seen him make, the rebounds, he had a putback dunk against Arkansas. Like, I think you have to play him to get that out of him. So we'll see how those rotations work out. I know we have criticized that, and it's going to be huge down the stretch. But guys, one more thing I'll say that I learned about this team was they fought for their coach. I mean, there has been unmitigated amounts of crap this year fired at Jerry Stackhouse. I mean, we all know it. We've said it. Everybody has said it because it has been warranted. I mean, the way they started the season was embarrassing. It was embarrassing. But I think what we learned about this team is they're old. And that's why it baffled me before the season. Stackhouse called this team young. So there's still things that baffle me. And I know you both of you guys agree, but there's one thing that I think reigns true here. The veterans on this team that have been with Stack and have kind of gotten older with Stack, they'll fight for him. And we saw that. I mean, I tweeted out, I said, we're going to see how much fight this team has for their coach. And they did, guys. Mm-hmm. They came out and fought their ass off and won that game, and they dominated that second half. So this could be potential. I think this was bigger than anyone even realizes in the S. This could be a turning point. I know we've done this before. Well, we've hyped up Vandy wins before. I hate saying it, but it could be a turning point. It really could be. It pains me to say it because I'm ready to be disappointed. But this, like, Arkansas they've been struggling, I know, but it's hard for me not to think of it as a turning point. Everything could change against Alabama. They could lose by 30, but I don't know. There's a level of fight with this team that I learned, like the football team, guys. I mean, we had given up on them. We gave up on them. We said they're all but lost. I mean, this football team, this basketball team is doing the same thing the football team did. I know that was a little bit later in the season, but I don't know, guys. I don't know if y'all agree. I know Will is kind of shaking his head a little bit.
You're stealing my thunder here, but obviously on scale. But this can go two directions. I think this team faced the choice. I think it just got so obviously presented during this game at halftime that either you can pack it in and lose, or come back, win this game, and it builds confidence within your team that for the rest of this season, no matter what, you can point to a game previously in the season and say, look, we've come back with our point guard out, not starting. I almost said that. We've talked about that. With Ezra Mignone kicked out of the game, technical fouls all around, all the momentum on the opponent's side, and come back and absolutely dominate them in the second half. It reminds me a lot of the NIU game. And this team for the rest of that year could point to that game and say, look, we were able to come back against adversity and come out victorious and actually win. Not just make it a close game, not just come back and make it competitive, but get over the hump, get over the hill, crest the mountain. And this team did it against a top 15 Arkansas opponent, not against Northern Illinois. So obviously it's basketball. It varies a lot more from game to game. There are a lot more games in a season than in football. But just if this team loses against the number 4 Alabama team on tomorrow night, that doesn't mean that all of a sudden all the momentum from this Arkansas win is gone. The rest of this schedule is very favorable for this team to look at this Arkansas game as a turning point and is the upward trajectory for the rest of this season to build momentum. So this Alabama game is about how the game goes more than just a win, versus this team against Arkansas needed that win. I mean, they had to win that game. They couldn't just play Arkansas close down to, 4-6 points at the end of the game. I think that will be, in a way, enough against Alabama. Obviously, you always want to win, especially when you get the opportunity against probably a distracted Alabama team coming in. But this Vanderbilt team is still a 9.5-point underdog at home against Alabama. This is a very, very good Alabama team, even with all the issues that they're currently facing and traveling on the road. So don't just throw it. Don't go all in after this win against Arkansas. Also, don't put all your chips on the table against Alabama. So I'm not fully bought in because I still think there are a lot of issues with offensive scheme after the Arkansas win, but I'm trending in that direction. but I'm not going to stop trending in that direction if they lose to Alabama. Now, if they come out and rattle off 3 straight losses after this Arkansas win, then you can, throw everything I said in the trash can. But this Alabama game is big, but the winnable 3 games after this Alabama game are bigger.
Yes.
Boys, what if they beat Bama?
I was just going to say they beat Alabama.
Yeah, say they do. Where are we at? If we see
the boys will be buzzing.
I don't want to say it because I hate Jerry Stackhouse. But
I love Jerry Stackhouse. Like,
hey, listen. I don't
I'll
care
send the personal
who our
apology to Jason Sanders on Twitter.
I don't care who the coach is. If you win, I could care less. Like that's where the Vandy fans should be right now.
Also, it's much easier for me to get behind a guy like Stackhouse. I have issues with scheme with Stackhouse, but if I was a coach, I'd be getting ejected every other game, constantly getting technicals. So, like, every time that he erupts, 90% of the time that he erupts on the sideline, I'm fully in, like, fully backing him up and behind him.
Doesn't it kind of remind you guys of Tony Vitello a little bit? Where, I mean, he was almost good for one of those a game, one of those hissy fits. But almost every time they would come back, they'd hit a bomb. They'd do something to continue that momentum. So I hate comparing Stackhouse to a Tennessee coach, but it's almost what that represents.
Especially a douchebag of a Tennessee coach.
I think that basketball, by far, more than baseball, I think umpires are a different breed in baseball. And I think football, you're more distanced from the referee crew, and it's more of a crew.
In person.
I think basketball can greatly be influenced by a coach going on a rant, because basketball, even the rules are very subjective. What's a hand check? What's a body bump? How much contact are we letting go on the inside? A lot of that is just kind of the flow of the game, and it depends on the referee crew. So the type of coach that I genuinely dislike and could never get behind is Bryce Drew, and the coach that shows no emotion and doesn't even look like he cares if they win or lose. I can say what I want about Stackhouse and whatever, like, disagree with everything that he does. That man is competitive. And once the lights come on the court, it doesn't matter if he's coaching Vanderbilt or if he's coaching a middle school basketball team. He's in and he's invested. So Stack may not be fully invested in the offseason or, all that like some college coaches are. But once the lights come on the court and it's game day, Jerry Stackhouse is in the game. Unlike Bryce Drew that seemed to just be like, okay, guys, win or lose, as long as we have fun.
And guys, I think at home, Stackhouse loves to play to the students, and the students love to respond to Stack. And so I think you can take to the bank a few more hissy fits, whatever you want to call it, from Stack at home. You'll definitely see it on the road, but at home, I think that's where it really comes out of him, to where he's emotionally invested, and the students, he knows they feed off that. That helps the team. That helps the players. It's connected somehow. It's all connected.
And Jerry, all of this will turn, and every Vanderbilt fan will defend you to the depths of hell for your technicals and your rants if you win. Kevin Stallings
Vandy fans
perfect example.
Was not a likable guy. If he was not Vanderbilt's basketball coach, I would probably hate Kevin Stallings. But Vanderbilt fans want to love you. Win, and you will have the most loyal fan base you have ever seen. This fan base would have done anything to keep James Franklin. He could have lost. He could have gone 4-8 for 10 straight years, and Vanderbilt fans would still probably want to keep James Franklin. So, Jerry Stackhouse, you have to win. Once you win, you can have all these quotes and social media posts and different things.
Blocking sprees.
But you're forgetting step one. And step one, win. And right now,
just win.
I loved the rant that led to the technical because Vanderbilt won. If they would have lost by 2 points, I think we might be having a little bit of a different conversation right now. So a lot of things can be spun very differently depending on who wins and who loses.
And
the fans are so simple.
We're simple people.
It's Jerry. If you ever listen to this little bit that we just did, just win. I don't care if you are the most degenerate person in your personal life. Just win. I don't care if you throw chairs on the court. I
Throw
don't
your
care if you
clipboard
get
all you
into
want.
bar fights. Throw your clipboard, spit in my face, Jerry Stackhouse. I don't care. Just win. That's all I
Just
want.
win, baby.
Just win.
Guys, they got chances. I mean, they got Alabama at home, still got Tennessee at home, still got Kentucky at home. They're going to have a year where they win most of their games at home. They're 7-3 at home, and the students aren't going anywhere. By the way, they're giving out free Shake Shack burgers Tuesday night. I want to
We've
go.
crapped on them, but shout out
Yeah.
to the Vanderbilt marketing and everything with those
Yeah.
shirts and the Stranger Things
Those shirts were
themed
tough. Yeah.
student night. That was unique. That was
Yeah.
different. That was exactly what we've talked
That's
about.
what we've been talking about.
Obviously, we're not taking credit, and I'm not taking credit because I did not come up with that idea, nor did I execute it. But that is an example of the outside the box thinking. It wasn't just a blackout. It was a Stranger Things blackout, and that clearly drew the students in
You got
to
some of the
that student
Stranger Things
connection.
nerds.
Because also those shirts were pretty cool. I will say those I wanted one of those shirts pretty badly.
Yeah, I did too. Those were tough. Yeah.
I think now, you're waiting on the gold out, waiting on the white out. White out will definitely be Tennessee. So, guys, they got chances, and they're close to being back. I mean, that win did a lot. At least they still have a lot of games to go, though. There's a lot of chances out there. That means chances to win. That means chances to also lose. So they got to get consistent, put a string of wins together, and we'll see. But it's Alabama and Vanderbilt Tuesday night. That's an 8 o'clock tip, correct? Am I wrong on that? Could be 7:30.
7:30.
Okay, 7:30. Yeah, 7:30 tip off at Memorial. Free Shake Shack burgers. I think they got some
SEC
pretty.
Network.
Yeah, SEC. They got some pretty cheap tickets still available too. So
Gonna listen to Dane Bradshaw talk about how apparently he had crabs during college. I don't
Oh
know.
my
I don't even know if
gosh,
he's on the
that
call,
was
but
that was one of the more uncomfortable
that was
situations from an
weird.
announcer.
Whenever he dropped it, I was like,
I
"Oh,
thought I thought
okay."
Tom Hart was hilarious too. He kept trying to distract everybody from what Dane had just said, but I don't know if you can bounce back from that. But
Have fun with
guys,
this tomorrow, ladies and gents.
yeah, have fun Tuesday morning. Listen to this wherever you are, however you may be listening. Thanks for tuning in. Anchor down, and hopefully Vandy can find a way to beat Alabama. You like that finish there, Will?
Yeah, it was beautiful.
See you guys.